Hi everybody, I'm Ryan and I have a breathing practice for you today. This video is inspired by Katy Bowman. You can find her podcast and all of her offerings at nutritiousmovement.com. I'll link to the specific podcast that inspired this practice today in the description of the video, or if I can figure it out, I'll link to it in one of those little pop-up boxes too, as if I can figure out how to do that. As you can see, I've got a few props here. I've got some pillows. I would recommend getting at least 3 pillows. We're going to use those to make a bolster, or if you have an actual bolster, you can use that with just 1 pillow on the head end of the bolster. I've got a chair and I have a strap. This strap has some elastic in it, so it's got a nice give to it. If you have something like that you can use, that's great. If you don't, that's also fine. You can just use a plain strap, a belt, rolled up towel, whatever you have at home. So once you've rounded up all your props, come back to your mat and we'll start our practice. All right, so we're going to start our practice today in reclined. So you can just come to your back with your knees bent and take the soles of the feet out to the edges of your mat. Just let the knees fall toward each other. You can adjust your shoulders so they're comfortable. And if you've got a lot of tension in your neck in this position, feel free to grab one of those pillows and put it under the back of your head. And we're just going to take a couple minutes here to bring some awareness to the breath. So simply breathing in and out through your nose. And just notice all the qualities of the breath. So notice the pace, whether your breath is fast or slow. Notice the depth, deep or shallow. Notice where your body is moving with the breath. We're really going to get into that today in the practice of how we move our physical body when we're breathing. And you can even notice some of the more subtle qualities of the breath, just overall, how easy it feels, or maybe how difficult it feels to breathe. And let's bring some attention to the tongue and just notice what your tongue's doing. It might be resting in the bottom part of the mouth, or you might have the tongue pressed gently to the roof of your mouth. If you were just kind of letting the tongue rest in the bottom, go ahead and gently press the tongue toward the roof of the mouth and just notice how that changes the breath. You can start to deepen the breath a little bit more. Simply lengthening inhalation and exhalation. Let's take 5 breaths here. All right, so after you finish that 5th breath, you can bring a little bit of movement back to the body and roll to your side, come up to seated for a second. And we're going to stay in recline, but we're going to set up our bolster next. So we want to set up so that our head is elevated and our shoulders are lifted a little bit. So I'm going to take these two smaller pillows, put them to go under my head, and then I'm going to take the bigger pillow and kind of ramp it up against them. And so we want our head and our shoulders elevated, but we want to have kind of the bottom back part of the rib cage still be able to drop toward the floor. So you don't want to be lifted, all the way up through the back of the body. You want to let the lower half of the torso be able to come down toward the floor. So you might have to experiment a little bit. So you can try it out and just see if you can still have some connection. The hips and the low back should still be connected to the ground. And maybe that bottom part of the rib cage is connected. If it's not, then make your bolster a little lower or just scoot down a little bit. If you feel like you don't have enough support, you can grab another pillow if you need to. All right, so just finding this simple reclined position with the legs straight, as long as that's comfortable for you. Some people, this position might put a little bit of tension into the low back, and there's a couple things you can do if that's the case. One is to simply see if you can tilt the hips backward and kind of think about the tailbone rotating up toward the ceiling a little bit. As long as you can make that adjustment and then let go of tension in the abdomen. Another thing you can do is just go back to that bent knee position. All right, so from here, we're going to reach our arms out to the sides. So just really reach out long through the fingertips, straight out to the side, starting to open the chest. And just take a second here to kind of adjust. Notice the palms here, just make sure the palms are facing up. And then we're going to really slowly start to move the hands up higher toward the head. So you'll find kind of that edge for this position where you can keep good alignment, where your ribs aren't flaring up too much, where you're still externally rotating the shoulders so the thumbs are staying connected to the ground, but you're getting a really good stretch. So we'll take one more deep breath in here, and we're going to start to find a little bit of movement. So as you release that breath, as you exhale, start to slide the hands back down. You don't have to go all the way down beside the body. You can just kind of follow the exhalation and stop the arms when the exhale ends. And then breathing in, just slide the arms back up. So we'll do a few more rounds of this. So again, as you're breathing, as you're inhaling and the arms are coming toward the head, you let the rib cage expand to the sides and even up, but try not to flare the ribs up. Try not to arch your back here. We'll do this for one more round. As we exhale, this last time we can just let the arms stay down by the sides. And when you're ready, you can, again, roll to your side, come up to seated, and set your bolster pillows aside. And for this next breathing exercise, we're going to use that strap. And you can find any seated position that's comfortable. You can sit in your chair if you want to. You can be seated cross-legged, or you can come to kneeling position. All right, so we're going to take the strap. We're going to wrap it around the lower part of the rib cage. And if you want to, if you have enough length to your strap, you can tie it off or just cinch it so that it stays in place so your arms can relax. If not, that's okay. You can hold it. You can still do the breathing exercise that way. So all we're doing here is breathing. And we're getting a little more feedback from our strap. So as we're inhaling, we can feel the body expanding out and increasing that resistance. And as we're exhaling, we can feel that tension soften. We can feel the rib cage pulling in. So we're going to do this a few more times, and I want you to focus on your exhalation for the next few rounds. You might even think about almost like squeezing out the air as you exhale. So you might notice on these exhalations, you can maybe feel the abdominal muscles working to squeeze out that last bit of air. You might also feel those muscles in between the ribs and kind of on top of the ribs, assisting with that exhale. So I'll do this a couple more times. All right, so as you finish this last exhalation, you can remove your strap or just release it and set it aside. All right, we're going to do one more exercise, breathing exercise on the mat, and then we're going to do a couple standing ones to finish up. So we're going to come over to tabletop position. So wrist under shoulders, knees under hips. And just kind of check in with the shins, make sure they're more or less parallel. And just because it feels good, let's move into cat pose for a few moments. So as you breathe out, round through the spine, curl in, and again, you can focus on that exhalation here, squeezing out the air. Maybe you can still feel those rib muscles working here. And then inhaling, make your way into cow, extend the spine. Gentle arch up. All right, so we're going to hold in this cow shape with the spine, but let it be relaxed. So we're not going to like full active extension. It's just a kind of passive version. And if it helps to relax, you can even let the head start to drop a little bit. And here I want us to start to let go of any tension that we're holding, particularly in the belly. So we're going to take several breaths here. And you might find it takes a moment to soften that tension if you were holding tension there. One more breath. You can come back to a neutral position, and we're going to make our way to standing. We're going to use our chair next. So we're going to set up with the back of the chair facing us, and we're going to set up a few feet away from the chair. You'll likely have to adjust a little bit as you come into this position. Basically, we're going to find a half fold position, so a flat back position with our hands on the back of the chair. So you're going to start to hip hinge, put your hands on the chair. So I'm going to have to step back a good bit further to get into that half fold position. So I've mostly found it here. You might have your hips a little bit behind your heels, perhaps. If that feels okay, you can bend your knees here, particularly if you find yourself rounding through the low back, then bend your knees, and that'll let you find that length in your low back again. All right, so again here we're just taking a few breaths. So you might think about getting the ears kind of lined up with the arms, perhaps. It's going to depend on your shoulder flexibility. That may be too much for you, and you might have your ears a little bit above the arms. There's no need to get the ears lower than the arms here. All right, so we're going to stay in this position for a little bit longer. We're going to add in a side body stretch. So we're going to cross our right hand over the left. I'm not going to mirror on this one since we're doing it from the side. But just finding that stretch on the right side of the body. You may need to adjust the hand position a little bit and stay aware of hip position and just make sure that you're keeping the hips pretty much level, so don't let that right hip hike up to avoid the tension. We want to create a good stretch here. All right, so let's switch sides. So hands kind of go over to the right and we cross that left hand on top this time. So again, keeping the hips level, it might even feel good to kind of draw that left hip back just a little bit. All right, we can start to release slowly, gently. Hands on the chair, and you can just walk toward the chair to come up. Shake it out a little bit. All right, so we're done with the chair for now. We're going to do one more drill here. So you may be familiar with this one if you've done some of my other videos or been to some of my classes. We're going to stand with our back against the wall, heels a few inches away. The further away the heels are, the easier it'll be to get into alignment here. So 3 points of contact with the wall: sacrum right above the hips, or right at the top of the hips, scapula and skull. For this one, you can bend your knees as well if you need to. And if you're finding it really challenging to get the back of your head to the wall, that's okay. You don't have to force it, but just get it as close as you can without too much tension. We're going to start with a deep breath in. And as we exhale, thumbs point forward and arms start to lift up. Again, really squeezing the air out. Breathe out here. And as you inhale, let the arms float back down. Do a few more rounds. And if it helps, you can even breathe out through your mouth on the exhale. It might help you get out a little bit extra air. You could even think about blowing up a balloon if that helps you squeeze out a little bit more air. Let's do one more round. All right, so as you inhale, you can release down, shake it out a little bit. All right, so from here, let's come back to seated to finish our practice. And again, you can be cross-legged or kneeling, whichever one's most comfortable for you. And we're just gonna, again, take a second to tune into the breath. So you can close your eyes if that helps you to bring that attention to the breath. So we'll just take a few more moments here to absorb the work that we've done in this practice. So you can notice the movement of the rib cage, Just like we did at the start of our practice, you can notice the qualities of the breath. Let's end with 5 more breaths. All right, so thank you for joining me today. Thank you for sharing your practice with me. Hope the practice has left you feeling a little calmer, more refreshed, and hope you have a great day. Namaste.